How goes it? What you've clicked on is as follows. A combination of 3 videos I already uploaded, where I turned every enemy into Curse-Rotted Greatwood. I got it into my head after the first one that it would be a fun idea, so here it is. If you got excited for new material, I'm not sorry. And fuck you. However, I must thank you for watching. I do appreciate it. Anyway, let's get to it.
For the uninitiated, my unwritten rule for these games is that I always pick deprived and no gift, and I'm only allowed to upgrade strength. When I reach 99, I dump it into something useless like faith. I spend an abnormal amount of time in the character creator because I just know that this is the last time I will feel anything other than guilt. I don't even really know where to start. There's just so much to get into, so I'll just begin with the physicality of this monstrous being. Treeballs is gigantic, and his hitbox is even bigger. The modder for this randomizer ran into several seemingly catastrophic issues with this dude, so everything designated as an enemy takes damage on the entire surface area of its body, instead of having to ball bust every time. Oh yeah, the audio is delectable. Before randomizing, I turned on the scaling, which explains the mismatch between damage and HP. The Untended Graves were a terrifying but easy scramble and will be the last time anything ever works out for me that quickly. As for the scaling, little did I know at the time that this little configuration would manifest itself physically as an unruptured aortic aneurysm. Behold, my prison cell, in all its glory, where I would go on to spend 5.5 fucking hours. Yes, we're starting off strong. We're starting off with the equivalent of throwing a newborn into a fast-moving river to learn how to swim. Except newborns already know how to swim and I just got here. If I went through my entire process, we would be here all day. So here's a condensed version. There was an active tree balls on the left, but everything else was in the idle pose. They wake up when I hit them, so that's pretty much the only way to get them out of the way, and even hope to progress. Yes, indeed. My main damage dealer for the rest of my life is the Lord of Scrotum himself. Down by the cliff are some firebombs, quite possibly the most important tool that my character could possess. But I don't make much use of them just yet. I'm eventually forced into the corner and get straddled, so I introduce myself to F equals MA and set the benchmark of my thoughts in this godless endeavor. I somehow make it under, through, and by the green eggs and branch to the fog door before gargling a multitude of necrotic pustules, establishing the fact that I'll have to kill enemies to even make it in. When this first guy in the gully spins anti-clockwise, I consider it a good pattern, since it causes him to disappear for reasons I will get into soon enough. The same thing happens at the fog door and I'm allowed into the fight, with Udex Greatwood presenting himself full frontal and his harem of cucks flanking him by each septic colony. Suffice to say, it wasn't looking good. I take unnecessary damage and land 11 hits on his taint with no results. Absolutely pathetic. The far left side yields about as many results as usual, so I roll for a good pattern on the far right side with disastrous implications. This is why I called it a good pattern. The clockwise spin completely fucks my strategy to death and after. Probing safer options leads to the harebrained scheme to aggro the left side into killing each other while I wait by the cliff, establishing another horrific trend that is present at every choke point, multiple times, for the rest of the game. With those guys dead, I dash the door and, obviously, die, which means I need to somehow rid myself of the bouncers too. With this in mind, I trot along the cliffside to find any pokey-outy bits to aggro as far back as possible, to damage as many blockades as possible. Amazingly, it barely fucking works with a well-placed heavy attack. Sure, this is pretty cool, but I'm gonna die a horrible death now. In any case, my scientific process has yielded a way to eliminate the left path and the fog door. Now I just need to find a way to return to my safe spot. Until I figure that out, I attempt brain-rotted Gundyr on the good runs, learning a boss that I had always rejected, and thus never truly learned. The grinder satellites are a real menace, especially this disgusting freak with the red eyes. By now it had been an hour with no progress, so I materialized the first stage of grief by denying this boss its right to be a boss, like I had before, and try to find ways to make it fall off or get hit by its friend. I reap my karma in kind. 39 deaths in. I discover a way to kill the first AFK guy, reaching deeper into the left path and aggroing the residents of this little connector, in turn allowing me to retreat to the safe spot and wait out the storm. If I don't respect the boss, it won't respect me. I have to learn it if I want to escape this bad trip. I spend about 15 minutes pushing and prodding the beast to learn what I could. For example, it has a throwing attack that seems to be completely random and ignores iframes. In fact, this attack leads to more deaths than anything else in the run, because it's complete bullshit. I also find out that, gradually, the minions begin to stop spawning after a certain amount of deaths, which I estimate to be about 20 in a shared pool, all of those deaths being to their dungeon daddy. To top it off, I find out that when a certain number of them die in a fast enough time frame, I'm rewarded with an Estus flask charge. Sometimes I get like 5, sometimes I get none. Now, I'm finally ready to tackle the boss. Ass crash, run away and behind him. Left stomp, track left and dodge. Right stomp, track right and dodge. Anticipate ground pats and leaf rakers. Headbanger, away and behind. Roll into the haymakers to avoid the leg follow-up. Projectile attack, fucking pray. And as for the prayer smash, roll through the knee and punish. This was hard. This was unbelievably hard. The last time I had spent this long in anything in these games was pre-nerf Star Scourge, when Elden Ring first released. I hadn't even made it to phase 2 after 2 hours. At the 4-hour mark, I had snapped, and between bouts of painful laughter, cried at the realization that Miyazaki himself was edging to the fact that this was happening to me. It was at this point that I reconsidered this challenge. I had to spend at minimum 10 minutes just trying to make it to the fog door, to spend another 10 minutes despawning the minions to even have a shot at this piece of shit, with this piece of shit weapon and stats. I couldn't help it but to reject the boss again. I couldn't fight it fairly, not with my sanity on the line. With a heavy heart, I report that I opened the randomizer back up to revert all the enemies to normal. And I mean, it wouldn't be that bad if I did the rest of the run properly, right? Wrong. Five and a half fucking hours, just in case you forgot. Ironically, what killed him in the end was the bouncer from earlier, who seemingly stuck a toothpick under his nail until he died. The fact that the tutorial almost took as long as the previous runs I've done is testament to what unholy thing I've gotten myself into. Finally though, I can upgrade my strength and my Estus charges. It isn't easy, but I scamper up the staircase and do my best to ignore the orgy occurring upstairs. I say hi to my waifu, the handmaiden, get the tree skip first try, grab the Estus shard and the silver serpent ring. For desecrating their cousin like that, the game reminds me that I never got my Ashen Estus flask at the beginning. So there's that. When all is said and done, I'm left with 5 Estus charges. Swag. The high wall is where dreams and aspirations go to slowly decompose over time, eventually becoming a memory so faint and neglected that you forget what it was ever like to be normal. Smash button, comment to like, bell, subscribe, and guess down below the amount of time I spent here going once, going twice, and wrong. I'm under your bed. This bonfire isn't safe, but thankfully not locked. It doesn't matter though, because the battlements to the tower wall, i.e. the only way forward, are filled to the brim with enemies. Enough to encroach upon my anus and burst out of my mouth. After getting teabagged a few times, I admit defeat. I'm going to have to defeat this roadblock with another long, convoluted stratagem. The feeling I had here was analogous to the feeling you get when you've been trying not to reach escape velocity while shitting, and feeling relief wash over you, only for all the relief to empty out of you along with the rest of your bowels. To make matters worse than they already were, I can't go back to Firelink, because whenever I rested the bonfire I get kicked off of it immediately. This could have been fixed by simply homeward boning back to Firelink, but I didn't know that at the time. The right battlement is useless and full like my cats, so the left one is where all the action will be. With some fiddling, I bait most of the weeping willies toward my vantage point, behind some turrets, where I slowly whittle them down. I am mostly, if not completely safe, if it weren't for that fucking projectile attack. Now is as good a time as any to explain how I think it works. As soon as the animation starts, a radius spawns in where the attack is able to hit you. The aim is to escape this radius before the animation ends, or you will get hit. Maybe. Sometimes. And even if you escape, you might get splashed. Or if there is so much as a twig covering the teleportation spot, then it will do no damage at all. I say teleportation spot because it isn't actually a projectile, I think. It doesn't need direct LOS to be used on you or have any room to do so. Where it works and doesn't work is essentially random. Anyway, let's just pretend that I made it past that accursed first battlement and into the first tower. There is an armada waiting to bend me over as soon as I turn the corner. Thankfully, there's a coveted safe spot right by the ladder. And by safe I mean 99% of the time it protects me, and 1% of the time I'm kissed between the cheeks by some predator through the wall. This is all well and good until some dipshit forgoes the usual landing strip and ends up right inside my exit doorway, where they either kill me or get killed. And guess which one happens more often? Let's just pretend I made it out of the door for brevity's sake and to put my point across. I'm usually out of Estus and luck by now, and I'm basically cooked if ever I make it here. Let's pretend I don't die to this bullshit projectile attack and somehow make it past that guy. The fucking Wyverns are still an environmental hazard, meaning I would be risking about 15 minutes worth of an attempt to make it inside the tower and likely into my doom. However, that flame breath gives me a fantastic idea. Precisely 0 things have changed about the environment, but I sure did feel like a genius after realizing I can bait the fire breath into killing the great chuds over there. Someone airdrops me the deep battle axe, which is actually hot steaming trash, but I don't know that yet. Roughly 5 minutes later, I am able to make it across to where the tower bonfire is located. Trouble is, I am in range for the projectile attack, and cannot run away far enough lest I get burned to a salty little crisp by the dragon up top. In my desperation, I look for any sort of nook to nestle myself into so that the guys in the tower kill each other, but I am left pulling my eyelids off after having been spread evenly and without flaw between the cobblestones. 30 minutes for a successful attempt is what we are talking about here. By the time I filmed that clip, I was 8 hours and 112 deaths into the run, and each attempt would grind another year or so off of my lifespan. So, let's get another montage going. Nah, just kidding. We'll need some determined sounding music, but not too epic. First battlement. Bait the furthest right Greatwood into killing all of his friends, followed by baiting the furthest on the left into doing the same. First tower. Roll into the ladder for about 5 minutes until you start drooling and your cranium sinks in the middle. Dragon stairs. Bait the fire breath into killing as many as possible until things stop taking damage. After about 50 enemies have died, start rolling into this here tree until... You know what? Fuck this. I'm just going in, and whatever happens after that, I'm not responsible for. Holy fucking shit! 4 hours and 15 minutes. I fucking love video games! This bonfire is the worst one so far. If I'm unlucky, I die in less than 1 second. How it's not locked is up for debate. I swap back to the club at this point because the deep battle axe is shockingly awful. While I'm here, I do some exploring, so I go check on Grey Rat, who I will absolutely, for sure, 100% release from his eternal prison. I promise. I grab some throwing knives, which are pretty dang awful too, all things considered. You can hardly aim them, and they don't have an arc on the throw, meaning you can only hit whatever's directly in front of you. After some faffing about, I look outside to familiarize myself with the next roadblock, while having 9 beach ball-sized testicles stuffed into my mouth. Every time I respawn, I have to make a mad dash just to survive the onslaught of in-laws. But if I'm lucky and I get a good roll on the rooftop bastards, I'm given access to what looks like a geriatric rave. They quickly become senile and irate when I clobber them across the back of the head. Go figure. So I retreat to make it look like I'm not at fault. You'd think that this is another case of simply waiting, but that would mean you don't think, because you forgot about the projectile attack that seems to phase through time and space, slowly but surely degrading my health over time. Just when it looks like the rooftop is empty, a billion more arrive fashionably late to the bingo disco, but just in time to spit roast me. What comes after that is a perilous rooftop escape, where I can either roll off to the left and risk plummeting to my doom, or go down a ladder to the right and risk becoming two-dimensional. And what comes after that is the parade, where I can either go left toward the dancer, right toward Vort, or a little more right to the elevator shortcut. It's at this stage also that I start making intelligent use of firebombs. They aggro enemies from extremely far away, due in part to the arc of the throwing animation that reaches over buildings and other tree ballses. It also does decent amount of damage. I honestly couldn't have done this run without them, so sincerely, thank you, Lemon. Let's start from the beginning of the gauntlet. Survive the Gazan neighborhood strike and make for the basement with haste. Tickle a scrotum over here and wait, and wait, and wait, and wait, and wait, and then wait, and wait, and wait, and wait, and wait. What the fuck? Where the fuck am I? What the fuck was that? Let me just check. Okay. So the next logical step after all of that is to simply get the shortcut elevator after only 4 hours. Yes, 4 hours. Makes sense? Alright, sweet. Let's move on to the parade section, which has 2 bosses. I'd rather attempt the dancer boss fight first for the sole reason that there appears to be an easier path, for now. And while it is a struggle to get to the boss, I was not looking forward to this fight, because it would probably be an even harder struggle. I had to show some sort of fruits from my nonsensical labor. So after leveling my strength just a tad more, I decided that the most preferred option was to approach from the dancer bonfire, because I absolutely could not sanction the presence of either of the other 2 bonfires. It's absolutely clogged though, and the Lothric County Council have hired a vaguely plunger-shaped ashen undead to resolve the issue. The bullshit projectile attack is bullshit, so baiting them at the door will send me over the fucking edge. I mean it, man. At the rate I was going at, I was doing 5 hours of progress between every single checkpoint. In fact, after the dancer boss fight, I was holding back laughter, not because anything was funny or that I was making progress, but because I'd brought this upon myself. Having changed absolutely nothing about my line of attack and brute forcing my way into Vort's arena, I get to work. Finally being able to flex my supple but firm muscles and finely honed brain rot, because everything in my head was now replaced by Greatwood's cursed and rotten great wood. His pustules split under the might of his very essence, a not so cursed or rotten or great piece of wood. I slurp up his acid diarrhea like it's Granny's pepper sauce and humiliate this poor wretch. If he can do that, I can do this. Paranoia dictates my actions to the degree that I impulsively fill up on homeward bones in case I softlock myself. Thankfully, the game provides a rampart that is immune to any attacks from a friendly group that is peacefully protesting my presence in this piece of poo piss take of a predicament. Except for the projectile attack, of course. You can assume that wherever I am, I'm constantly searching for a safe spot that avoids that attack in the same way that a cockroach seeks the nearest athlete's foot. In a terribly misinformed attempt to rescue Yol, he reaps the karma that I sowed, and pays the price for my negligence. Oh well, he would have died to the boreal ballsack that somehow spawns inside Firelink Shrine. I could not find a consistent way to safe spot this shit. I basically smash my face into a brick wall in both interpretations of the idiom until they all die. Supposedly, alluring skulls work in the sky, but honestly I can't think of a single time it would have been more useful than firebombs. Half an hour later, I managed to clamber my way to the first settlement bonfire, where I soak in every square inch of the next 10 hours of my life. The literal only way to progress toward anything is through an onslaught of like 10 tiny doorways, where I rely on RNG so heavily that I've run out of gods to pledge my soul to. Waiting around allows me to slowly come to grips with the fact that I've officially ruined my life. I take one look at the near bridge to the cliffside bonfire and enact my panic and roll around strategy. Waiting around actually seems to bear less fruit than just forcing myself into the goatsy and spinning around until I make my way. I forgot to record myself making it to this next part, so here's a Microsoft Paint rendition of how I got over here. This tunnel reminds me of the medieval city I grew up in, complete with scrotum juice all over the ground, and living corpses leaning against the wall asking me for money. The safe spot is safe, but it's safe to say that the next fray is far and away a horrible stay, and I pray that my foray will somehow, some way, one day keep the Hatman at bay. I really don't know how I did it, but I happened across this bonfire by the sewer, which is definitely a welcome surprise. It only took a fucking hour of being crushed between wooden urethras. The first bridge illustrated how fucked up that route potentially was, and the route up and around the valley seemed like a much more attractive option, and it's an option that's been selected. Unfortunately for me, I basically respawn inside of this fucker's descending colon, and boy oh boy does he have some inflamed diverticuli. I yoink the bone shard with some effort and slowly, painfully come to the conclusion that this route is simply impossible. There isn't a single spot that simultaneously kills the goon squad and keeps me safe. They are mutually exclusive, and the giant archer is doing his best to become my 13th reason. So it's time for me to go back to the first bonfire and attempt to cross the first bridge. And the current minigame is to make it to that cliffside bonfire before I finish inhaling the can of bug spray. Fortunately, the foes in my path are in cahoots with my education system, and are just in time for my next explanation while I make it to the next bonfire. Buckle up, students. Every time an enemy attacks in Dark Souls, they have a script running that is constantly aware of my position on the horizontal axis, so they know where to be and where to attack, and have an animation table that matches this. In Bloodborne and thusly DS3, enemies are now not only aware of my vertical position, but have altered attack scripts that allow them to hit you on slopes, or between any alterations in height. They also have animations for this that makes use of high collision and low collision, so that it looks natural, and makes for better gameplay. Illusory Wall has made a video on this that I linked in my description. The thing is, Treeballs has this present in his code too, since all enemies do in this game. However, his arena is mostly flat, where all he really has to do is adjust for maybe a foot of height difference. He also has to fall into a lower flat pit in phase 2. Now, when you remove him from his arena and place him in all sorts of fucked up places, you create all sorts of fucked up scenarios where he clips through the map across the entire y-axis. Horizontally, he works fine, but as far as I'm concerned, it's safer to assume that the entire y-axis is under his jurisdiction. This is both good and bad. Good in the sense that he fucks up and goes too high or too low and lets me past, and bad in the sense that he can very easily ascend from beneath the Earth's crust to ruin my life. Explanation over. So the next problem is this rickety-ass bridge that leads to the chapel where Sigurd is. A mad dash through the orgy leaves me only partially violated, and I set up shop in the adjacent sewer, where all the bodily fluids and acidic chlorophyllic rectum sauce builds up like sediment. It's actually easier than it looks to make it past the bridge, but I am again not left unscathed. Sigurd really has no patience for my troubles, so I leave him where he is, befuddled, and descend to take a single look at the next bonfire and decide, nah. Instead, I befriend the giant archer and am forced to make myself comfortable in the cuck chair, since this testicle titan that replaces the crumbling demon aggroes onto me and tricks Sigurd into thinking that I'm fighting it. This is one of several ways to acquire a fire gem, a potentially useful direction I could bring my weaponry, so I tried to divert aggro away from Sigurd to spare his poor soul. This is useless, because so is Sigurd, who does all but 15 damage per hit, and allows the demonic foliage to stampede its way toward me and capitalize on my stupidity, right as it was about to die. I didn't write this into the script, but I'm leaving the actual Curse-Rotted Greatwood until a more thematically appropriate time. Fuck you. Repeat the sewer strat, and this time ignore everything else and simply waltz around the Outrider Greatwood to capture this here bonfire. I then capture a coveted ember before making haste toward a potentially useful weapon, the Butcher Knife. Treeballs is weak to slash damage and it scales very awesome saucily. It isn't an easy trek, but I find Mildred's outpost, drop down to it, and crash my game. Actually, my entire PC shits itself, and I spend the next 10 minutes trying to reboot the game. What happens next is so awful that I couldn't even record the game without it crashing over and over. Instead, I had to record this next bit on my phone. So what's happening here is that for some reason my game is completely fucked, and I don't know why or how. It runs at a whopping 1 frame per second, at best, and my PC lifts its control rods to heat my room. I keep restarting the game to no avail, and resort to killing myself very, very slowly. Upon respawning, I find out that this didn't work either. You might think, why doesn't he just restart his PC? Yeah, I don't know, I hadn't done that yet, and it worked. Shocker. Upon returning to Mildred's location, I get unfairly booted off the edge, and catch a glimpse of my potential next weapon. Yeah, I don't know. I have no explanation. Right, that led nowhere, so on to the next CBT session. The watery swamp is, and it's not even close, the most fucked up area in the whole run. There are at minimum 100 enemies packed into this demented freak-off that all aggro onto me at the same frame that I spawn in at. What was trying to sound its way into my bladder was the nucleus of my derangement from here on out. Oh yeah, and remember how I applied scaling to the randomizer? Well, I get 1200 souls per kill instead of 1000 now. That also means that they do more damage. The implication of this is that since I'm only leveling strength for some reason, I will very soon be one shot to every single attack sent my way. And it's already this bad at the first increment. Let's begin. The rightmost side was more or less fruitless, since there was no determinable safe spot, and I couldn't outrun them due to the slowing effects of the mire, compounded with the sheer quantity of what seems to exclusively comprise of members of the registry. The only thing going for me was the death of a single mud crab. That gives me some useless ring. The leftmost side has the same number of enemies, squared. There's nothing even resembling a safe spot, especially when the entire forest descends upon my poor undead. The middle route has the same number of enemies again, but cubed. This sucks and is stupid, and I'm gonna have to solve another roadblock puzzle. I mean, I asked for it, but I didn't expect them to be this whack. To start, I have to stand behind this rock, which is the only spot on this trail that has a somewhat high chance of preventing the projectile attack from hitting me. The deciduous duo directly on the downward path are slowly killed by their friends, and I wait for everyone else to slowly grind their trussies over to my hovel to slowly kill each other. And if I'm lucky, they didn't use too many projectile attacks by now. Once there's only one left, I run all the way down to the pond to bait even more friends, or fronds in this case, and run as fast as possible to this specific spot by some roots. To put it simply, I'm immune to almost all attacks, except for the obvious, so I spam rolls to fool myself into thinking I have even a modicum of agency on this disaster of a process. Every time there's only one remaining, I wait for them to attack, and sprint toward the eldritch mass in my way, running back to bait even more to the safe spot. Once I reach 46,000 souls, I know I've reached the minimum safe amount to run for my life toward the ladder to the next bonfire. It only took 2 hours, but finally I conquered this puzzle, and I am at my fucking limit. It'd be nothing less than roadblock after roadblock, a seemingly endless stream of conceptual diarrhea, and I was sick to my stomach at the thought of repeating that process again, which, by the way, takes 15 minutes to complete. I stared at the unrandomization button like the Green Goblin mask this whole run, and honestly, is it even worth it at this point? Sure, the last time something this monumental was accomplished was when humans learned how to cook. And I'm trying to cook, I really am, but I asked myself if it was time to give up entirely. Yes, it is worth it. This shit feels like meth administered directly into my frontal lobe. This bonfire is completely unsafe. The only way to survive spawning in is to immediately leave the room and moisten the fungus between my toes in the swamp. I could run into this brick wall in both senses yet again, but that only traps me in the room to die. My main focus is on the Estus Shard, Bone Shard, and Greatsword within the swamp. Oh yeah, there's an Estus Shard in the settlement. Anyway, I quench the rightmost chimney, die, and try the leftmost chimney right after. Unlike the right side, this section is so bricked up with enemies that my PC gets slightly louder when I approach it. Waiting for enemies to kill each other is a waste of my time. I mean, more of a waste of time than spending in-game days on this shit. So I brute force repeatedly until I manage to get the second chimney. The third chimney is unguarded for about 10 seconds, which is enough to quench it, but definitely not enough to survive the oncoming buttfuckery. Also, I got the Greatsword, but I think I forgot to hit record at that part. Here's a recreation of how I did that. Small aside, I'd gone up the ladder and embered to bait the invader to spawn, so I could get the Great Club, but I had no idea that they had already died during one of my more tragic attempts where I wasted an ember. The Great Club is right there in my inventory, but you must understand, I was suffering from some pretty aggressive brain shrinkage on par with what the Udam had, so I was lamenting the loss of my favorite weapon for no fucking reason. I donned Faris's hat, that I picked up along the way, and also forgot to record and draw out a mental map of the route I need to take. I need to keep to the rightmost island, slowly glomping my way in by the foot of the bridge, and yeah, I forgot to record that part too. Listen, I was running out of hard drive space, okay? I couldn't just record hours and hours of unsuccessful attempts, just pretend that this part right here isn't staged, and that I could have forged diamonds in the crevice between my tensed glutes. And what awaits me next is nothing short of PTS fucking D. purse-trotted straight dud. Instead of showing you another doomer montage, let's cut straight to the success. To prepare for this next part, I grab the other Estus shard, then the bone shard, and begin lathering up in anticipation for the Fire and Wolf bonfire, so I can use the ashes to buy Titanite shards. First, aggro the slugs by the ladder, then the slugs in the watchtower. Then run as fast as possible through the doors of Farron to the largest safe spot on the run so far. Shame it doesn't work, where fucking 80 tree chodes do their best to get through the glory hole, but they are not appropriately endowed for that. And that's it. I just fuck around on this part until everything dies, while being completely filled with paranoia that I will get one shot by the projectile attack, or Ezra Miller facing through the wall to touch me. On this attempt I kill all 76 chunguses required to make it up the ladder, only to get Jenkum jousted to death. Send help. Eventually I make it up the ladder and grab the ashes. Now onto the next bonfire, which would serve well as a good checkpoint for the Abyss Greatwoods. You just walk around the corner, really. Yeah. This is where I realized that I did, in fact, have the Great Club, and so I upgraded it because I expected to use it at some point. Not because it's super cool, but because I thought that using a Greatwood to kill a Greatwood would be great, but would greatly would Greatwood, 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 Greatwood. Anyway, the run to the boss fight is only just as painful as passing a kidney stone, but I make it anyway, where I'm greeted by a single entity instead of 4, which I was dreading. I was expecting 2 phases, so this was going to be hard. But I was going to be harder, and I get down on all 4s and flex my alpha male superiority over these buffoons and their petty leader, who definitely does not kill me here or here, and I get him to phase 2 on my first try, and there is no phase 2. I mean, okay, I was actually looking forward to that. The Catacombs are the worst thing to happen to me since waking up this morning. Immediately, the bottom right of my screen shows me that I did in fact turn on scaling way back when, and that everything does in fact kill me in one shot. There are only 2 attacks in this area that don't one-shot me, and they're the easiest to avoid, so it doesn't even matter. Even the projectile attack kills me if both nobules hit me. Obviously, the normal path is just as packed with chill dudes, so I consider only the skip on the right. If you didn't know there was a skip here, you are stupid and weird. 10 minutes of nothing but brain-dead rushing leads nowhere, so I decide to let the Great Shots kill each other while I stand in, by far, the loveliest safe spot, since it baits everyone into scooching off the edge, and I get to hang out with the broskies upstairs. Unfortunately, there's some weird fucker who gets stuck in the doorway, and goes on to display my earlier thesis where he constantly clips under the map in an attempt to kill me, but it also prevents me from moving past him or hitting him. Anyway, this next part is so unbelievably fucked that I'll just summarize it by saying, just run around. Pray to whoever, and grab this bonfire before the realization that you are wasting your prime years sets in. Welcome, everyone, to the latest roadblock. That room with the skeletons sure is inactive, but man are they good at preventing me from playing the game. What I have to do here is use firebombs to bait the blokes furthest in the back and wait for them to piss up everyone's ass, while being paranoid inside this tunnel in this specific spot, since the only thing that kills me is you-know-what. There is such an insane amount of enemies that sometimes up to 100 die if I take my time. Usually I make a break for this section. Once I've spent 15 minutes rotting in my chair, I'm allowed to cross the bridge. I briefly check out the ladder, but check out once the screen starts shaking. I was instead going to attempt to kill Great Lord Woodnir. This fight thankfully doesn't have him vaping all over the place, but fuck me, I wish it did. Instead of this fuck-ass slope. Remember that high-end low collision thing I talked about earlier? Yeah, he wigs out in regards to this slope. 9 times out of 10, the pustule I'm trying to bust is under the ground, where I can't hit it. And if even the tip of your weapon hits something else first, you won't get a successful hit off the pustule. Another amazing feature of this fight is that, 9 times out of 10, the minions are completely unlit when new ones spawn, and I get surprise fisted from behind. To top it all off, I have to gather the mental fortitude after 20-minute runbacks to use my brain properly. That won't stop me. Much like a stop sign can't stop me, and I power on through my first attempts, blood surging all around my body as I get the dopamine hit of a lifetime when this happens. Yeah, okay. Time for something else. For now, I go gawk at the journey I would have to take to make it to Crystal Sage. On my first go around, I knew instinctively that it would be beyond my pay grade and ability to even fathom how I could do this part. Purely for reconnaissance, I spent about 10 minutes baiting every penis toward the ladder opening to perform a mass genocide the likes of which has not been seen since I finally decided to wash my poop sock and its microbial colonies. First of all, the shortcut on the right hand side looks to be the safest bet, but involves killing pretty much everything in order to even consider making it there. There's an unfathomable amount of squatters shacking up with Orbeck, and honestly, it seems to be the only future option. In the spirit of recon, I ember up to gather information on the rest of the route. On the raised part, where the lycanthrope guys are, is empty. but only because of the constant baiting. The only way to get up there is filled with enemies, as was seen ages ago. There is a bonfire up there, but the trouble is it's home to like 1,000 hollows who chill right underneath it. If I ever decided to empty the forest and rest there, I would doubtless be soft-locked forever. Right, while I'm embered, I might as well go explore the Smoldering Lake, since I'm not one-shot anymore. Some firebomb baiting precludes master waiting and a pleasant stroll to the dungeon, where I gain access to an unexpectedly close bonfire. This divine stroke of luck from the gods spared me a divine stroke of cuck in my brain, turning the boss run into but a minute-long journey. Oh my god. Something's actually gone well. The Smoldering Lake is as friendly as ever, but if you would believe it, it is actually easier to traverse than usual. Fucking insane. Though like all things, this upward trajectory was bound to go awry. The old Demon King is on my hit list, and unfortunately for him, I respawn underneath his mailbox. This fight was fixing to be annoying, what with the mounds of demons getting in the way all the time, and the bumpy arena. It's almost like he knows that I need to hit his pustules, so he hides them inside his pile of dirty laundry. What a cunt. Fortunately for me though, it seems his goons kept spawning inside the laundry piles too and couldn't get out, locking the spawn rates for the rest of the fight. Did you know he has a pustule on his right shoulder? I didn't. And neither did he, it seems. This fight was easy, and my luck is still rolling. Could it be? Am I feeling optimism? It's high time I finish things with Walnir, the bastard. The dungeon bonfire is immensely useful, but I need to break the bridge using a firebomb since bows are too weak, and it just barely works too. I still need to cut the difference between victory and skill issue, so let's just cue the montage.
Knowledge is a curse, especially when that knowledge is that I will have to face the crab swamp to continue down a path that results in some sort of diagnosis. Knowledge is also a blessing, especially when that knowledge is that I know where to get the Flynn's ring and the Cloranthy ring, the former of which increases my damage and the latter of which boosts stamina recovery speed. Let's go frolic. The angle of approach is from the bonfire by the Outrider Greatwood, who I would rather not stick around no more. For some strange reason, this elevator kills me like 10 times. And by that I mean I just slip off repeatedly, like an idiot. Sigurd tells me to cop on, and so I do, but he rewards me with beer. And I'm not a fan of positive reinforcement through alcoholic dependency. The absent father blacks out, so I direct my anger toward my son, this baby Greatwood who I birthed, and establish based generational trauma. This building is chock full of the sort of folk who chase bugs with their mouth, meaning I'll have to locate multiple safe spots on both the outside and inside to acquire my toy rings. I can aggro using firebombs that somehow work, and 1v1 this bum while the infighting takes place. Divide et vince. Flynn's ring is perfect for my so-called build, because lower equip load increases attack power. Cloranthy ring is just handy. While I'm here, I take a proper gander at the singularity. Again, I'm not going to fight him until a more thematically appropriate time. Right, onto Michael Meyer. The best option for me currently is the first Farron Keep bonfire, which is absolutely unsafe. The same frame I spawn in at, about 8 scrotum squires lock onto my rectum and launch full speed towards it, which wouldn't be so abhorrent if I could fucking see them. If I'm lucky, they don't swing at me while climbing the ladder, kill me with the quantum beanbags, or rise up through the floor to punch me through the entire building. I found that the best way to deal with respawning was to wait about 2 seconds before dodging to the left, and climbing the ladder as quick as possible. From there, there's about a half chance that I die to projectiles or kicks through the wall. If I somehow survive, I have to heal as fast as possible to avoid being sodomized during my setup for the next part. Yep. All of that was just healing with respawning. After this was dealing with the entire swamp, aggroing onto me as soon as they load in. They're all too far away to start charging or rolling at me, since the only way that can happen is if I've already been within their melee perimeter. After that, they can charge or roll from any distance forever, which is perfect for waiting out the storm. The me that you were looking at did not have a plan in place for the segment just yet. Instead, this little Sigma just tries to run through everything with mixed results. The idea is to run on the right side toward the shortcut stairs into whatever this building is, public school or some shit. The minute gambles taking place here are to pray for the closest guy to do a left kick, which allows me to run up the stairs and on the right and spam roll. If I am indeed a high roller, then I am granted access to the lobby of the strip club. The safest place to be is up on the balcony, where only one funny character can hit me with their ballistic ball sacks. On this attempt I had no Estus left, cooking me alive, but no biggie. I can just try that again, right? That was one single successful attempt after 1 hour and 20 minutes of gameplay. The rings I got did fuck all. In a desperate bid for another path, I check out what amounts to be nothing more than a spacious latrine with the properties of a panopticon, except instead of eyes, it's trees on all sides. Aye boss man, it's time to re-strategize. Harkening back to my previous idea of aggroing the entire swamp and letting them kill each other, the next idea was aggroing the entire swamp and letting them kill each other. The best way to do this was by waddling around at Mach 3 and returning to this exact spot by the banisters. The only way to get hit in this position was with a projectile from the left, because the wall is short on that side. Now I wait for exactly one long time, until shit stops dying, much like the plot of these games, and sprint past the last one to the same staircase. As expected, the results are the exact fucking same, somehow. Let's do the previous tactic until I magically make it to the balcony again. This time, there are far less sex pests shacking it up with Orbeck, who has now very likely been turned into the paint on his office walls. There remains some deviant, who I can't comfortably reach with the firebombs, and rubs my neurons in such a way that I actually come up with an idea. I could use a bow and arrow. I have a bow, but no arrows, and 100 bolts, but no crossbow. Shit. Instead, I pray that my firebombs reach until the sequestered sequoia is felled and opens the path to the crystal sage. I had no idea how this was going to go. In the vanilla fight, there is one actual boss, who summons many lesser versions of himself. If it's anything like Abyss Watchers, there will be only one boss, but several minions, which is in fact what happens. I had 4 Estus, but could be potentially rewarded with more if I play it right, as was seen in the previous video. The arena is cramped and awkward, and I have to juggle the tree's offense as well as the cuck harem, all while being blind and having just spent 3 hours in a shit-infested cress pool. To play it safe, I wait for all the minions to stop spawning, before launching my foray into the undergrowth. I hadn't noticed until now, but the Greatwood by the fog door is still alive, and is probably able to launch projectiles upside my head if he's so pleased. And because of the scaling, they were by now one-shotting me. My suspicions are confirmed when the boss shoots at me from the same distance. I tickle him a bit, but really, there's no point, and there's no way to get them to hit each other because, step tree, I'm stuck. I blast the blisters below the Bellend's belly, belating all of his animations to give me a chance to reposition. This works brilliantly until I mistakenly believe that this applies even during the phase transition. Shockingly, he tanks through it, and hits me with a brand new attack animation that annihilates me. This thing can only be predicted. It cannot be reacted to, because there are 100 milliseconds between it starting and you ending. That is especially quick, when your skull is being forced through your ass for 20 minutes beforehand. Apathy isn't an option for any part of those attempts either, because apparently losing focus for 100 milliseconds is enough to send you careening back to the bonfire. Out of desperation, I check out Irithyll to see if it lets me in, but damn, son. In the darkest depths of despair, does a terrible idea truly shine? I went ahead and bought myself tons of arrows from the Shrine Handmaiden, as well as the composite bow. I'm sorry, little one. This here soulstone allows me to shoot for max damage from further away, cementing itself as a must-have ring for the rest of the video. I would stock up on more arrows, but I'm locked from the necessary ashes for now, and Grey Rat is, well, the idea is that I'm gunning for the main bonfire of the Crucifixion Woods. Unfortunately for me, it resides behind, at minimum, 50 enemies, probably even more near the bonfire that haven't loaded in just yet. I used the previous strategy from the last time I was here, waiting and baiting by this rock until shit stops dying. I used the bow here to kill the closest cuck so I'm a little more safe. Then I discover an unbelievably useful but circumstantial exploit. The optimal position for baiting coincidentally rests between 2 separate area loading geometry. Up here loads Road of Sacrifices, and down here loads the woods. This has the side effect of restarting whatever animation was playing, but enemies have about 1 second of iframes upon loading in. However, animations like the charge or roll have damage towards the end of the animation, after the iframes. What I have in the palm of my hand is by far the highest DPS possible in this run. They charge, then reload, then all hit each other at the same time with their biggest attack. Such efficiency is only possible with the power of Bratwurst. After 15 minutes, all but one of the initial swamp inhabitants is dead, allowing me to nervously move down the yellow piss road. Between the constant projectiles hitting trees and the threat looming behind my cheeks and being 20 minutes deep, I was properly tweaking. Eventually, the short bus catches up to me and I'm forced back up through the trees, where I am forced into a nerve-wracking 1v1. To make matters worse, it had just been 5 hours, and I had to piss pretty bad. And the 1v1 was taking too long, so I just quit to menu. I don't know how I forgot about this, but the quitouts reset the enemy's position to their initial spawn location. Does this make the run invalid? I don't give a fuck. I honestly should have used this more often. Upon returning, I'm faced with a single enemy blocking the only way to the bonfire, which I can actually see from here. I'm not taking any chances, so I ember up and wail on the dumb bastard, and line myself up for the home stretch. It's been 40 minutes by now. It would not be out of character at all for me to die here, like a fucking loser. Here's the thing though, I don't have to fuck up here to be a fucking loser, because I already am one. This bonfire, while vastly superior, still does not allow for a consistent path toward the Crystal Sigma. Now having a stock of arrows, I can manifest this idea in the place I conceived it, but it fucking sucks compared to firebombs. It still doesn't change the fact that it takes about 10 minutes compared to the usual 20 to make it to the boss. Nice. The left side is fucked, and while I'm gifted an Estus shard, it doesn't make up for the only possible route being as filled as a Pinterest user. Not to mention the guy outside the fog door can hit me with projectiles. If, somehow, I kite all the enemies in a specific way, survive long enough to thread every needle, have enough Estus to even make it to the fog door, and, ultimately, have the mental capacity to stop licking the pavement, I have more diary like this. This corrupted the file, so I had to do a bootleg display recording, as indicated by the activate windows. My internet also died after this for different reasons, and when finally I was able to launch the game again, snap back to reality, soldier. We have piss to fry. Go from the dilapidated bridge and cull the residents of this hollow to acquire the Mortician's ashes. Use it to purchase the grave key from the handmaiden. Go from the same bonfire into the sewer and down the gully, panicking your way all the way to this very specific septic tank and wait out the local sewage swimmers fighting for dominance. Up and up, find the socially maladjusted nun and speak with the alpha male. Then speak with them at Firelink. Out of curiosity, find out that enemy NPCs have been randomized somehow. An hour later, the time has come to show them all what for. Kill Orbek's friend with benefits and pop an ember, and voila! Now your friend with benefits is by your side, ready to flex his rudimentary but sufficiently ant-like AI. Not only is he tanky, but he hits hard and heals himself. We gang up on the Sage's bouncer before introducing ourselves as Dr. and Mr. Sex. All I need is for Egon to aggro the minions in this annoyingly cramped arena, while I aggro the Greatwood away from him, where we will then fuck him in the ass. The idea quickly goes to shit, but he killed enough sycophants to stop the respawns. There are some reckless maneuvers and questionable moments, but my paranoia birds an excellent idea. Acid diarrhea prevents me from getting close. Okay, I'll just use my bow, bitch. This time around, I know not to get too close, lest to be squished like a little grape, staying on his behind as much as possible to avoid the 100 millisecond zingers. This roll causes me to shit profusely, but I have the wherewithal to shoot his balls. He pulls out an animation cancel, befuddling me briefly, but I continue sending twigs into his elbow testes, weakening them bit by bit. Again, he tries to trap me within his navel, but that is what sealed his fate. Good riddance, motherfucker. At a tasteful level 82, my strength stat is looking mighty fine. The path to the next bonfire is uneventful, bar this degenerate freak and this annoying freak. The same could be said about this chicanery containing a myriad of testicular titans and the cobbles by the chapel, all of which require only a modicum of baiting and thwomping to bypass, but not before nabbing da shard. While having the first DLC set up is nice, I must first collect some large shards that I missed in Izalith. Out of curiosity, I investigate the interior maze for more, but the cat is killed rather quickly. And while we're doing character development, this unholy checkpoint is now my best farming spot. Now with 9 Estus and a +5 club, I was ready for the preceding area. The Cleansing Chapel is a highly coveted true safe spot. As long as I'm out of melee range, I am impervious to all attacks, even projectiles. While this is great for master baiting, it simply does not suffice for the upcoming clusterfuck, so I crawl out of my abode. The area-specific enemy of this graveyard is this fuckwit and their parasitic twin, who by no means are difficult despite respawning. In fact, there is a choke point that blocks almost all of the graveyard residents into a single confined space. You dumb bitch. Those positives are actually the negatives. Every time I kill the replacement for the Siamese twins, they fucking respawn. And yeah, they only respawn like 11 times, but multiply that by however many enemies inhabit the cemetery, plus however much HP they have, divided by the chances of being one-shot by the projectile attack, because I scale the enemies like a dumbass. On top of all of that, I can't simply run by them, because this segment plays like a Viet Cong tunnel, where I'm cosplaying as a suppository pill and the epididymis epidemic is cosplaying the endless stream of fecal matter. I spent like an hour here, repeatedly dying and going down the gully to the right and pricking each individual Greatwood fixed nothing because they're stuck where they spawn. This part was different because it genuinely was not possible, physically or statistically. But amazingly, I somehow made it around and kicked down this ladder, but oh fuck, I forgot to record it. Aw dang. Anyway, the next segment was not much better than history would imply. In fact, it may be the worst so far. First things second, the ladder was seemingly the only safe spot. By that I mean it relied on luck, because sometimes I get enveloped by a nondescript sphincter. The amount of trees spinning around upstairs is unquantifiable. I would estimate about 40 just around the ladder room. Some waiting makes for some baiting when I exit the manhole, desperately trying to get the crackheads to kill each other instead of me. I may be tripping, but I think I saw a phase 2 Greatwood within the writhing mass. But in any case, the top of the staircase will require a great deal of patience to bypass, much like the crack shack in Crucifixion Woods as indicated by dying horribly. To that end, let's drop from the top. Safe spot in the chapel for like 5 minutes. Proceed to the gully. This part is easy, so we escape up the ladder and light up a doinker, invoking a wistful sigh in preparation of ripping my nuts off. This is another safe spot, and while not a true one, it lets a maximum of 1 missile hit me, which is survivable. To maximize the amount of healing I am left with and minimize the psychotic tendencies, I delegate myself to pepper this idiot with arrows, until I am provided with a precious opening to the double doors. The prowling anus and congregation down below cannot attack me up here, thankfully, but there's an active Greatwood behind an AFK who absolutely can strike me from afar. I have on me the maximum amount of arrows I can carry as of now, since the Handmaiden is a machine that is my only vendor. Out of fear, I don't get up close because I don't know if I'm within or without the range, so the bow will have to do. By now, I'm down to a single Estus, a dilemma only exacerbated by the Tower of Babel, threatening to pry my clenched cheeks apart. And this wretch. They even throw shit at me, as if the lump in my throat wasn't enough. Desperately, I clock the cock blocker and shoot this acorn to reveal an absolute fucking mess. Thankfully, 1 or 2 feel like this life isn't worth it, but that still leaves like a trillion more enemies. I aggro them all just to feel something and eventually find this specific corner, just in range for melee but also looming under the threat of napalm strikes. Rattled by a projectile attack, I use an ember to stave off the inevitable. Now, slowed to the pace of a crawl, I am engulfed by paranoia as I meticulously spray my foes with a gradually diminishing stock of mediocre weaponry. The rooftops provide a meager refuge in the face of such blasphemy, made worse by this T-posing monstrosity. The plaza does not aid my confidence, so I jump the buttress, barely making it, to view safer options from above. A poor choice indeed, evidenced by the projectiles pounding me from below. Even lower now, I flee like a mad flea to the closest shelter, this balcony. But I could not hope to last. The high wall historically has not been the most accommodating, especially the fountain section, meaning my best shot of making it inside this building was from the parade. From the Vort Arena, I re-invoke my carpentry skills by whittling this meaty ochre down to size. Deja vu leads me to the fountain, guarded by a single tree and a myriad of onlookers residing just outside the octagon. Slowly they are granted passage to the sawmill, and I clear the ladder for safe usage. You might be wondering, what am I doing? Well, look over there. That's your answer. As luck would have it, the only waking member of the Oyster Cloister is down the hall, making for a perfect long-distance acupuncture therapy in a true safe spot. I have at this point been so desensitized that a measly 15 minutes of suffering feels like nothing compared to the 40-minute travesty I just endured. What lies in here is the cell key, and an Estus shard to boot. The cell key that frees Grey Rat. See, I told you I'd free him. It only took a month. This sexy fucker sells 2 arrow types, 1 bolt type, and a crossbow. As long as he stays here. I'd rather not send him to the undead settlement just yet, so I hand him his lover's decomposed clavicle to keep him institutionalized. What matters more for the cathedral section is arrow variety, so that I can hold as many as possible, as well as bolts. Finalizing the current build are the rings that the Handmaiden sells. The life ring is good for now, but will be replaced. What I really want is the shield ring, which prevents me from being one-shot nearly as often, especially while blocking. With the hawk ring too, I should be golden. Because crossbones are short range, I spam toothpicks for now at the thing that aroused my suspicions before. There is in fact a phase 2 Greatwood somehow in the mix that possesses the same qualities, let's say, of the regular ones. It just has more damaging attacks. Once a gap appears in the ocean of scrotum folds, I book it to the double doors. There I aggro both cock blockers and shoot while I can, to minimize instances of projectile splashes. Superseding this is the lower rooftops, with the adjacent tower that threatens to unrequitedly enter me. To bait as efficiently as possible, I touch this cobble in particular to bait an attack, and retreat just far enough to avoid projectiles. And if this little window worked, I would be a lot happier today. Eventually I'm granted access to the rooftop plaza, where I'm allowed to aggro and bait a metric fuckload of what used to be thralls. Once that's opened, another true safe spot rears its soft and supple head, whose soft spot I then push in with my thumb. Annoyingly though, there's loading geometry directly beside it, with about 4 glory holders popping in periodically. Mind you, this attempt has now taken me 40 minutes. Which is quicker than last time, but in terms of metric distance made, I'm only about halfway to the next checkpoint. This prick lets me pelt him from afar, but I'm presented with another one of Miyazaki's wet dreams directly in my path, one of which I kill. Thankfully, my genius reappears, if only briefly, to remind me that the enemies can change position when loading in. Unfortunately though, some other degenerate who I may have accidentally aggroed earlier drops in and nearly ruins my own and probably a nearby family's lives. 42 hours, 30 minutes. I'd stopped counting deaths long ago, but the rate is probably less consistent now that I'm forced to be patient. At long last, the one guy inhabiting the belfry succumbs to my prowess and is survived by his soon-to-be dead roommate, after an incredibly awkward scuffle. It's inconsequential, but some enemies are tier 2 scaled and others are tier 3, that guy being tier 2. i.e. 1100 souls without the serpent ring. What this means is that I have killed comfortably over 100 enemies thus far. Mercifully, the balcony provides a comfortable choke point with ample distance for bow attacks, targeted at only a fraction of the enemies present up there, likely because they are inactive. For now, the interior of the cathedral is rife with anxiety, what with the screen shaking more than usual but there being a lack of enemies. Regardless, somehow someone from somewhere makes his presence known and forces me back outside, where I partake in the most unpleasant 1v1 to this point, where every half second I look to the right to confirm whether or not the AFK guy will surprise buttsex me, and what do you know, he fucking does just that. And not only that, he puts the loco into his motion by ignoring the choke point entirely and nearly binning 55 minutes worth of an attempt. Another extremely unnerving 1v1 followed by another, the aft staircase presents its evil residents, who thankfully can't return fire. I've nearly run out of projectiles myself, and am relegated to pitiful damage output, praying for the tenants to kill each other as much as they can, to reduce risk. I open the door and push their bodies aside to go kill their sleeping children, but the scary man living in the basement throws shit at me through the floor and it fucking hits, reducing my Estus to 0. The toddler puts up a fight, but I'm smarter. Barely. And barely avoid more projectiles from below. Please, release me from this limbo. Oh, fuck. 130k souls bring me to 86 strength, which hopefully is enough to replenish my self-fulfillment needs, and for me to tackle the upcoming boss, and I don't mean the Deacons. The cathedral may not have the same density as before, but almost every choke point is blockaded by one or more dudes and their floppy sacks. Don't get me wrong, comparatively I didn't spend nearly as much time here, maybe like 20 minutes, but the bosses are not what's hard in the run so far. Also, I grabbed the sword ring, which is pretty swag. The lower chapels are full of dementia-ridden religious zealots, so not much differs from IRL churches. But what really twists my taint is the swamp area. Said zealots also make their homes in literal pools of excrement, again not being much different from real life, but what does differ is that they actually have friends that want to pound me just as hard. I fail a few times before realizing that I can lift the dividing baby gate to block them on the next attempt. Or well, the one after that I suppose. And finally, fucking finally, make it to the Deacons boss fight. It only took like 6 hours. This is just such a perfect arena for tree balls. The ambulatory gives me like a kilometer of kiting room, where he can't touch me if he wanted, and a sarcophagus to pin him in place for a time. I could do this quickly, but I can't just give this up so easily. I wanted to enjoy every second of it. So I run around, pecking him with arrows and killing his choir, clobbering him when that felt more fun, but ultimately finishing off with 2 measly little arrows, courtesy of Greyrat. Instead of leveling up, I stock up on materials, because that has been a wildly successful tactic that improves my sanity as well as time management. Right as I'm buying condoms from Greyrat though, he gets double dog dookied on by this freakazoid, and oh man, if Greyrat died here, I would have pushed my tongue into my nasal cavity and suffocated to death.
of Irithyll spreads wide from my entourage, me, myself, and the ghosts in my head. You would assume that this section would be difficultly, in fact, not normally whatsoever. And you would be absolutely right. If I could count, I would probably cry. And all I really find out in this first attempt is that I have to AFK beside this specific banister, followed by going AFK behind this banister and shooting, followed by dying, start dissecting the nearest human, followed by cooking their internal organs. You get it. I won't dwell on it too much, so I'll just commentate the successful runs for a bit. This stage boils down to hoping that only one Greatwood gets baited down to the little tree for a fair 1v1. Like 6 times. The intention is to make it to the church bonfire as a checkpoint for the rest of the level, which continues to be awful.
Ooh, fuck.
I was hoping to put off doing the sewer section for as long as possible, but unbeknownst to me it was the only way to progress. Fuck's sake. I grab a completely useless bone shard because my health is still 10, and proceed to the sewer. Between the sheer number of tree balls and my total apathy to the whole situation, it resulted in the triggering of a fugue state, where what happened in my head and what happened on my screen became mostly interchangeable. Wait. Hold your horses, bucko. I think we missed a few steps along the way. See, that sewer section was by far the least of my worries, in that it was absolutely packed with the deranged, but that was simple enough. Just wait for them to kill each other. Rewind just a bit to the elevator section, which is also packed with enemies, but which cannot seem to kill each other within a reasonable time frame, especially if the man upstairs is still respirating. Go further back and we see my idea of a fucking nightmare. A dam fit to burst, overlooking a continuous passage that doesn't block my adversaries at any point, except at the beginning, where I will be one-shotted by a projectile by some weird bastards keeping watch over the local Playboy magazine, which is preceded by an easy enough room and an easy enough aquatic ambience. In fact, the bonfire I use here is an excellent farming spot, where I get a few thousand souls simply by resting. And what of the sewer section? Well, now the tape is wound taut, and we can play it at 10 times speed. Destroy the waste management plant and poison it with aluminium oxide. Run for your fucking life. Grab this. Run for your fucking life again. Shoot this. Grab this. Run for your fucking life again. Wait. Shoot this, grab this, got that? Good, because the Pontiff fight won't make any more sense. Thankfully, the shortcut cuts the run to Pontiff down to like 2 minutes, but it pales in comparison to the existence of not 1 or 2, but 3 extras within the boss room. Sure, they probably won't respawn, but good fucking luck killing them before being turned into a butt plug, especially when they break free from their restraints and enter the fight with Pontiff. I'm going to need my own restraints if this keeps up. And as if it couldn't be worse, the arena is the perfect shape to be squashed by a roll attack, which ignores iframes because fuck me. If he uses acid diarrhea or headbanger, then I have to get away from him. But his posse is where I want to be, meaning I have to walk even further away, to the range where projectiles, charges, and rolls are the most common. All of which being nearly impossible to avoid due to the shape of the arena being solely the nave, apse, and transepts of the church. I may be a coward, but I'm no bitch, and I don't care what underhanded tactics I have to use to get my way, while bending my weird rules to my liking. After passing through the initial shortcut, the plan is to ember up and summon Black Hand Got Hard. Whatever. I summoned this guy solely to distract the harem sitting outside the arena, so I can kill the dumb fuck embedded within the church buttresses. I honestly didn't expect him to live, so that's a plus for me. The poor guy has no idea what is going on though. All he knows is that he got hard, and is ready to kill. Through a mixture of shooting pustules and clonking his bollocks within a reasonable range by the fog door, now being more safe, I whittle him down and watch Got Hard get soft and perish like a dog. Interestingly, the optimal strategy I found was to shoot when zoned out and clonk while close, especially focusing on shooting the elbow during attack animations. Wait for phase 2 to open his back balls for an easy stagger and clench while waiting for countless one-shot attacks to fly overhead, especially that fucking 100 milliseconds bullshit, and go in for the kill. The only thing of note for this next part is the absolute fire drip that these NPCs have going on, but otherwise the entire trip to Aldrich proceeds with an ominous leniency. Yeah, the run to Aldrich is fucked. Go figure. After like an hour of waiting for luck to guide me home, I actually develop a strategy, where I shoot these hanging sods and wait out the storm in another very nice, true safe spot. The fight is not fun at all though. And I mean, the ambulatory on either side of the shit pool grants some reprieve, but all it does is bring me in range for projectiles from the outside somehow. And fighting in the apps is just so fun. As a personification of the entirety of Irithyll so far, that being limp-wristed, disappointing, aggravating, and leaving a dull emptiness with a dash of comedic timing, I fucking run out of space on my hard drive. The cherry on top is that, as another personification, there were precisely 0 new tactics in both Irithyll and in the boss fight. I just hit him until he stopped moving. I'm so done with this area. Just get me someplace new.
The someplace new in question was, in fact, Irithyll Dungeon, which I was hoping would be so jam-packed with enemies that they would just all kerplode and let me by. Yeah, okay buddy. To start the bonfires and save it all, because there are innumerable enemies shacking it up in the attic. The main path is totally blocked, meaning I have to either gamble with no safe spots, yes, no safe spots, by the bonfire, or jump down and gamble with no safe spots to make it back up. Even with the power of hindsight, neither of these options were less fucked than the other. Let's pull up that map again to show the route I would have to take through this delicious dungeon. I would have to survive spawning in, getting through the first lower wing, into the upper wing, across to the second upper wing, down to the second lower wing, and that takes like 10 seconds normally. For me, it took like 15 minutes just to open that one shortcut into the second wing, and what awaited me outside was 3 disgusting vasicles that were at the perfect range for projectiles, at me. And if I wait inside I get quashed. At some point the planets aligned, and my horoscope tells me that I'm one bad day away from releasing my inner dog. Again, I have no new strategies. Just shoot, wait, and get lucky sometimes. All I can offer is this half-assed rant about how stupid this shit is, even though I have no obligation to continue or to even have started it. I mean, I do have a reason, that being that the rush I get off of beating the puzzles in my way is on par with robbing someone. Luckily for me, one of the 3 bridge bozos falls off, and I shoot like the Hat Man came to see me. That is to say, I finally felt relief after like 100 bullets. Oh wait, no. I embraced the sweet release of death. Imagine, if you will, that I didn't die here, and instead continued on to the following leg of the journey. There should be a mimic Greatwood here, and there was for a split second, but it quickly vanished. Honestly, I didn't even want that Estus shard. Yeah, no, alright. Anyway, the very last thing I wanted to do was pick up my controller and gamble with 2 hours of failed attempts. But would you believe me if I told you that's exactly what I did? And would you believe me if I told you that high rollers get fucking rolled? That took 5 minutes, by the way. The subterranean crypts begin closing in on me, who is a hair's width away from a legitimate crash out, and between the ever-present absurdity of the nature of what I'm doing combined with the absurdity of the successful attempt, I was hanging on for dear life. By the time I made it to the Profane Capital, it was dire. I could see the fucking bonfire on my screen, but the game had one more absurdity up its sleeve, because comedy comes in threes. I'm very nearly pelted off the bridge by what I assume to be a gargoyle, who doesn't even give me the courtesy of staying fucking still. The most nerve-wracking 1v1 between a human and an AI ensues. Slowly I shoot him to death and club him to death, but I run away after seeing his jitteriness. And I may look like a bitch here, but I think it's valid, because this had been going on for way too fucking long. If I clocked him upside the head and he bounced down and then back up, launching me into the abyss below, I would have fucking lost it. I hope to fuck that it's not me saving the world when Skynet happens. For the upcoming Yorma fight I wanted to recruit Sigurd, but
you have to free him from Irithyll Dungeon?
Well, yeah. I waste some jiffies in this other section because I neglected to look a little to the left toward the actual progression route.
How the fuck do I get down there? Oh, wait.
I bait some, wait some, die some, but an uneventful follow-up is followed by an uneventful fight. At last, Lothric Castle, the home stretch. I'm unsure as to why, but Greyrat is despawned. He very well could have died or he's pissed at me. Either way, I doubt I'll need his arrows since the handmaiden has like 10 varieties now. The castle is essentially the same as the cathedral, in the sense that it's just a hallway and a doorway with some dude's crotch stuffed into it several times. Up until the first bonfire anyway. After that is some shooting and some more, and a few chunks too. Thankfully I can go seal clubbing by this staircase and successfully clear out whatever this section is called in a single try. I wish more funny shit happened in this part too, but don't you worry. The dragon barracks are a far cry from easy. In preparation I upgrade some, but honestly it's fucking meaningless.
What the fuck? What are you doing here? What? What?
There are so many enemies that my frames drop, which really doesn't help when there are 2 sex pests waiting for me to stop covering my ass in fear. Thankfully they kill the wyverns that spurt fire, but I'd rather that than spurts in my eyes. The best option from here was to somehow bait the bouncer all the way across the bridge for a fair 1v1. And by golly, it seems to have been a mini-boss. During that scuffle I discovered that there's loading geometry on the staircase. While the enemies behind this gate here are not affected by the constant reloading, the enemies in the staircase are. So I abused this with the repeated charge attacks, eliminating enemies at an assured pace until this weird bitch shoots me. It was enough though, seeing as there is now ample room to weasel my way in, all the way to the Dragon Slayer boss after some deliberation. Of course I opened the elevator shortcut, where luckily I have a diverging path away from the series of clogged doorways.
What?
You may think that this is an amazing bug, but that would make you a fucking dumbass, for reasons I will now explain. The pilgrim butterfly spawns inside the Greatwood, popping every single ballsack at the same time with no prerequisite damage to them, meaning the only way of killing him is by biting the hand that feedeth me. This is dangerous, for a multitude of reasons, chief among them being the pilgrim butterflies on either side that can one-shot me with their bullshit attacks. I already knew that though, since I actually did a normal strength-only run of this game a while ago, and got stuck at Twin Princes. I reenacted the definition of insanity, and I pussy out every now and then and tried summoning Egon to the fight, but it didn't help at all, and may have even made things worse. At the very least, the Sunday sermon doesn't respawn, but having 10 of them plus 2 butterflies plus the boss itself is not an easy task. How did I solve this puzzle, you ask? Well, I simply hit the boss until it died, except with my weapon art this time. Genius. Fucking genius. Watch as I crunch the souls of these potential strength weapons. Dragon Slayer Great Axe? Fuck you. Yorm's Machete? Fuck you. Profane Greatsword? Fuck you. The archives are far from grand. I would just like an area that doesn't fucking rip ass. Bolt past the door and wait for everything to die. Shocker. After that, wait by the door until everything dies, etc, 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 et fucking cetera. I try to sprint through, but yeah, this one requires patience to kill me. Sometimes a random guy appears and disappears when a hit, so I assume that's the Crystal Sage.
As a wise man once said, you either come in the sink or you sink in the cum. I do both.
I already told you about the first bit, but you know exactly what comes next. I shoot this motherfucker because if I get too close I get shot at. I don't think I mentioned it, but the only way to avoid the projectile attack is to run toward tree balls. Maybe this information is in a wiki, I don't know, but if it isn't, it should be now. All credits go to me. This is preceded by a terrifying few minutes of even more shooting. Luckily, I was shooting crystal lizards or some shit because they drop items, which means that they shouldn't respawn. Which is good, because soon enough I will die and be forced to do all that shit again. Actually, no! I will never have to do that shit again because of this ladder shortcut. I'm just telling you how I felt at the time for dramatic build-up. POV, your phone ring, and it is the entire rest of the area. They try to murk me, but I'm simply too genius to let them off me in such a way. It has to be more thematically appropriate than that, at least. You'll see. Luckily for me, nobody is in range to chuck muck at me, whereas I, the Chat Ashen one, let loose a myriad of fire arrows directly into their gooches. The balcony provides a strange but somewhat welcome loading geometry, which might be useful in emergencies for a quick escape. While I wait around for shit to die, I go around aggroing various tree ballses that are comfortably out of range, just because I might as well. What separates me from the normal route is yet another Harry Potter cosplayer, apparating at will through the stairs, but at this point I'm quite adept at 1v1s close up, so it doesn't even make me nervous, which makes me sad. Ah, that's more like it. Oh, and this too. The game teases me with crashes every now and then. Now I feel normal again. In the spirit of adrenaline rushes, let's fucking gun it across the bridge to the elevator shortcut below, bringing my HP to one-shot range from basically anything. Oh, did I mention? Each kill grants me 2600 souls, meaning even a single nobule from a projectile could send me reeling. Upper archives, definitely a far cry from the cluster cunt below, but far more annoying in their placement. This guy is nearly full fucking HP, so let's have a terrifying duel inside this stairwell. Damn son, I'm nearly out of arrows now, which scares me because I have the entire rooftop section above me. It is entirely unpredictable because the gargoyles swoop in, like we saw in the Profane Capital. Now down to a single Estus charge, I expect nothing less than pain in front of me. Most of the accompaniment is AFK, but that matters little when the few ones that are awake completely block my progression. While dealing with this particular bastard, he does everything wrong with the run so far. Rolling away, aggroing his friends, plopping his nuts on my head, and sending all of my HP reserves down the shitter. He does give me a heavy gem, I'll give him that. In that confrontation, the remaining degenerates perched up top was reduced to 0, but I pull no punches and amber up. Mercy beckons her trifling hand by providing me with another ladder shortcut for my troubles, and then I see it. The exit. All I have to do is roll past these guys without getting hit. You really thought I was going to fuck that up. You fucker. You never trust me. You never trust me. +9, baby. Also, watch as I waste this ember. This next part boiled down to me just shooting through this fucking banister. Bait bitches, shoot bitches, over and over, for like 30 minutes. There were close calls here and there, but it was really fucking boring. Anyway, I send down the elevator shortcut because, holy fuck, I'm not doing that entry parade again. I felt like that fog door was going to be really fucking painful to get past, and I'd be correct. This first attempt would be a glorious display of everything I'd learned thus far. Using bows whenever I had to, using the club whenever I had the gall,
ensuring that the respawn counter was maxed out before popping the weakened testigers. In phase 2 I made sure to stay behind the behemoth and bait the standing animation to pop the right shoulder. Chunk him here, chunk him there, this thing stands no chance. And the best part is, that was just phase 1. I get to do all of that again for phase 2, but at this point I'm pretty cracked at the game. Did you know that phase 2 has its own projectile attack? I don't know if I included that clip anywhere, but it also has its own explosion AoE attack. This shit, I don't know how to avoid. Just got lucky, I guess. And as for the 100 MS slam, I easily dodge it and acquire the 4th and final Lord of Cinder. Now for the epic finale, the final encounter. It unfortunately cannot be cheesed from the outside arena. That would have been just perfect. The first phase is as uneventful as it gets, but upon the phase transition, the ass crash fires up the Gwyn theme.
Fucking phase 2 music comes out.
As a last pathetic effort to slap me, Greatwood introduces me to another secret melee attack for its phase 2, at the end of the game. I almost feel endeared by him at this point, especially when he gets up and walks like some demented toddler. In honor of that, I put him down while he's on his belly. What a Sigma.
Fuck you. As a quick recap, we have defeated every single mandatory boss in this game, including the final boss, and have the entire optional roster to tackle. Sorry, Demon King. I contacted the registry, and they gave me a hit list of the neighborhood's most wanted sex pests. It starts with Oceiros, kingpin of the clothing optional kindergarten, and boy does he need to be put down. The good news is that there are only 30 great chuds halting my passage. Oh, wait, no, that's the bad news. The good news is that I'll have to kill pretty much all of them. Wait, fuck. Let's refer to the funny map gimmick for a jiffy, shall we? There is close by a bonfire, which I am thankful for, but this is it until I kill Oceiros. The best I can do until then is open the shortcut door right by the entrance to the consumed garden. The train of thought departs the station, lest I be driven mad by being conscious the entire time. But before it leaves, it reminds me that I will probably need moss clumps for the septic tank swimming lesson session downstairs. Like with my local Burger King, I shimmy under the cashier to initiate the bloodbath of employees in the back, because I know that they're hiding a human trafficking ring behind all that processed food. The initial strategy of sitting in a dark room and rotting away is very reminiscent of my current living situation, but I pulled a live leak and fell into the elevator shaft. You may now revel in my double-digit IQ plays, because there exists a sort of catwalk where I can strut my stuff to the chagrin of the onlookers below. I think I was catwalking at the local chimp sanctuary, because the spectators begin flinging their shit at me with shocking accuracy. Thankfully, I am allowed to aggro the bill collectors and remain mostly safe in this nook, where I have to position myself close to the chain to avoid projectiles, which is about as effective as using a magnet to avoid being punished with the coin sock. Shit stops dying, either because there's no more aggro or because they're stuck between trees that are actually well behaved. This forces me out into the real world, where I see this strange glowing orb, and a ceiling that seems to stretch on forever. The Estus Shard channels the essence of Shard as I unleash a torrent of brown upon my adversaries. This part is really boring, and I will be skipping it over a lot in this video, so just assume I have your best interests in mind when I skip shit. After consulting my horoscope, I envisioned the path I need to take to make it to the shortcut door, while avoiding the shit swamp. Merciful fate extends the stricken hand, and a path is presented before me. Now to actually open the door in question. By my estimate, 5 enemies are paying their due rent in this misplaced acid-looking house, which means they're relaxed and don't feel like killing each other. Yet. All it takes is to convince them all that a copy of Bloodborne 2 has been implanted inside one of them present. This guy misheard me and tries to prise my cheeks apart to get his hands on my gallbladder. A super awkward 1v1 inside a doorway on a bridge is enacted, and I use the remainder of my arrows to kill the last guy. Behind him are 3 squatters who very nearly ruined my life, but I am victorious nonetheless. They are slowly cast aside, and on the way back I assess the boss entrance. It's hard to tell because of the friendly trees, but there are only 2 or 3 enemies here, with one conveniently fully blocking the door. He scooches out this time, but that was probably a fluke, so I better make this count. My hope was to gain a few Estus charges during the fight to replenish my meager stock, because for some reason I'm awarded Estus by killing these minions. The cutscene reminds me that this arena is, in fact, cramped as fuck, and that's with an enemy the size of Oceiros. Upon spawning in, I am shown that the arena is, in fact, the size of this boss. And upon euthanizing the kindergarten before me, I was shown that they can, in fact, spawn inside of me, damaging me and scaring me enough so that I fuck up the dodge on the next attack.
What the fuck?
No worries though, because the Doomer montage doesn't come just yet. Instead, I come back through the shortcut door, where I just wait for the trees to finish their battle royale and succeed in killing the dude blocking the boss gate. Oh yeah, and I embered up to improve my chances of surviving. Fuck off. This weirdo freak likes to pretend he cares about the kids under his management, but don't be fooled by him. He has them working the salt mines under Lothric, making use of their pliable bones and small stature. Once the Mafia goons have stopped spawning in, I can carry on with what I call the absolute procedure. I'll explain that when I feel like it, but for now I'll just say that it's by far the easiest, quickest, and safest way to destroy the walking HPV. Lothric's criminal underbelly has just seen its first casualty, and it's high time I target the middlemen of the operation. I never would have thought that a bunch of pixels on my rectangle of doom could elicit such a visceral response as it did here. As soon as I grasped the idea that I'd be returning to the Untended Graves, I could have sworn my heart rate increased some. Lo and behold, when I stepped foot in the accursed graveyard, my scrotum shrivels up, leaving me cold and alone in this awful place. Thankfully, I had the cursed technique edged into my cerebellum from being here for an entire working day, except this time I had a bow and arrow to aid my journey. I even go to take a leak while waiting for the orgy to cease, just like the good old days. However, I fucking hate the good old days, and would much rather push forward onto new life experiences. So instead of brazenly assaulting my neighbour, I methodically disassemble their social support structure and invite my lawyer so we can gang up and eliminate the threat, not before interrogating for further information regarding the drug mules caught up on the Lothric border. I seriously couldn't care about an honourable fight, especially here, in this arena. So me and the Swordmaster will partake in a sword fight. Unfortunately, Swordmaster finishes before me and must now eat the biscuit. Whatever, get me the fuck out of here please. Time for tactical espionage action to root out the distributors. If you can hear that construction noise, I really couldn't give a fuck. To gain entry to the Archdragon Peak, I must first make it to the dragon statue in Irithyll Dungeon. To gain access to that dragon statue, apparently I need to kill like 50 fucking enemies. This is comparatively easy. If you compare it to everything else I've experienced, it is. I have a spacious safe spot where I take my goddamn sweet ass time neutralizing the enemy. For the first time ever, this room isn't downright awful, and I'm referring to the base game too. I have no idea what the Profane Coal does, but I take it anyway. And I wanted to rescue my wife, but she unfortunately was smushed during the onslaught.
No. This is gonna be so bad, man.
Yeah. If you don't know or forgot, I scaled the enemies. Yeah, I know.
Shit.
Because of that, there are 5 tiers that the enemies can be. Here's a chart showing the details. The enemies for this area are tier 4 scaled, which would be on par with Upper Lothric and the Consumed Garden, meaning I am one-shot to pretty much every single attack, and every enemy has like 50,000 HP. The only way to take damage and survive is either due to acid diarrhea or being hit by a single projectile. Otherwise, it's nighty-night. I scurry up the cliffside and promptly shit myself twice. Thrice, but thankfully I'm granted an open bonfire for the preceding encounter. Upon speculation, one would assume that the general process for this fight is a non-factor. How the fuck do you plunge attack this guy? And even if you could, just fucking look at that. Even more distressing is that the arena is exactly the right width for the ballbuster, only it has variations in elevation from my displeasure. To note, this causes him to rapidly phase up and down through the entire y-axis, in a poor attempt to turn me into a sounding rod, which is successful on the first attempt after I'm bedazzled by his harem's bugged AI. I enact the first stage of grief, but it then reciprocates by showing me exactly the fuck shit I've gotten myself into. Fine, I'll take part in this fucking fight. Oh wait, my adversary doesn't actually want to take part in this fight at all. He's too busy getting dragged down to hell and bouncing back up in intervals of milliseconds. He stops doing this as long as he's kept in the central square at the top of the stairs. I can fight on this raised part by the bell, but eventually I am forced off of it to access other pustules. As for the square, if he doesn't ask crash, I obviously have to roll away. Especially during phase 2 where moves are long-winded and all-encompassing, and the acid diarrhea will kill me eventually. This won't stop me, nothing will. The only thing that can stop me is myself and my stupidity. Oh wait. Alright, you fucker, I'll start phase 2 right off the bat to stop your femboys from spawning in and prolonging this prostate prognosis. This, obviously, does not work because of this shit. Fuck this. Time for epic MLG win montage. Shoot balls, go over here, go downstairs, get hit, bomb the neighborhood. Now that we're separated, we... The second half of Archdragon Peak was obviously going to involve a ton of shooting. That was a given. So as I nervously walked through the first establishment and into the east wing on the way to the vending machine, I hold up my clubs so as to tank any bullshit coming at me, supplemented by my shield ring that operates at full HP. I am only able to enjoy myself at maximum paranoia. This is rewarded by a lovely safe spot, where I fling a couple dozen arrows while I play Clash of Clans in the other hand. The other couple of guys can easily be felled by having them fuck each other to death while I watch in the corner. I'm still a bit paranoid, so I swap out Flynn's ring for the sword ring for a slight damage increase, while maintaining the shield ring's protection. This motherfucker spawns in right as I climb the ladder, which causes me to formulate a plan to jump out my window within nanoseconds. Everything works out just fine, but like, you have to be prepared at all times. Again, bitches leave, and I move on, but the last guy is boring holes into the back of my head, necessitating a mercy kill on the side of the road. Roadkill tastes pretty good, but I can taste the sweet nectar of victory just on the other side of this work safety violation. The inspector is here and he's pissed, which he communicates by vibrating rapidly along the y-axis purely to fuck with me on a level that convinces me that the government really is gang stalking me. After checking under my nails for cameras, a really fucking annoying encounter ensues, but I still have a way to go, namely through this here building. This here building unfortunately houses the most unlikely couple that invites me for dinner, but I'm not hungry for ass. Ricard really scares me, because I haven't had human contact in a few days, but unlike real life I don't know his damage output or HP. Thankfully a safe spot guarantees my asylum, allowing me to chuck some seasoning over yonder while Ricard, enters the sunken place or something in his little cock chair. Anyway, I stump the stump and tickle Rick, who apparently doesn't appreciate arrows in his mouth. Finally, the bonfire, I can fucking see it, but tragically, I acquire it, forcing me to continue playing this game. Thankfully, the nameless Greatwood is right there, but first I need to level my luck stat. Run invalid. It isn't strength only, and purchase some oversized toothpicks for the gap in my front teeth. I wasn't really worried about this fight, and neither should you be, but they are, by now, easy. And I don't just mean comparatively. While the only gripes I have are that the clouds in the arena kind of fuck with the hitboxes and there'll be 2 phases, it's pretty boring. So I'll let past me explain what I meant earlier.
Now would be a good time to explain what I call the absolute procedure. It goes like this. First, you go for the left hand, then you go for the left leg, and then you do ring around the rosies, making sure to dodge into enemies before they can hit you, and then hit them with a dodge attack. Once they stop spawning, you then go for the elbow with a bow, and then you go for the testicles in the middle, and then you wait behind him while he does phase 2 transition and get his back with hits or bows, it doesn't really matter. You go ever so slightly in front of him, not close enough to get hit with the 100 millisecond zingers, but not far enough that he does a charge attack. In doing so, he will stand up, and when he does, you run as far away as you can, you run as close as you can to his right shoulder once he plummets, and hit his shoulder, and that should be it. Unless your damage sucks, then I don't really know what to tell you, man. And voila! Segment 1 complete. Now for Segment 2 versus DLC. Oh man.
This DLC is, and it's not even close, the worst experience I have ever had in any video game, ever. And I am not being hyperbolic, I genuinely cried a little bit at some parts. You've been warned. Let's first talk about the very essence of the environment of the Snowfield. I can't fucking see a goddamn thing. Which isn't very lucrative towards forming an efficient strategy or maintaining a stable mental state. You seriously can only see like 20 meters in any direction at best, and about 5 at worst, because fuck life. The entrance isn't even safe, because it takes about 5 minutes of shooting to fully clear before I set even a single foot into this Hatman realm. At least there's a bonfire after that. Second, the enemies, while we're talking about them. They are tier 4, and there are a lot. Like, so many, that I do not have enough arrows to clear them all out. Even if Greyrat was still around. Yeah, Greyrat is fucking nowhere to be found. He isn't in Firelink, and I haven't sinned apparently. I looked up his questline and he isn't anywhere he can be. His ashes aren't sitting anywhere they could be. He just became invisible. Third, the geography. The vast majority of Snowfield is narrow tunnels and valleys that are peppered with little outcroppings and ledges, and in some cases destructible cornices, which completely blind me and leave me vulnerable in the falling animation. Each of these problems would be manageable on their own, but of course, they are ever present, all at the same time. On this attempt, which took about 20 minutes to perform, I finally break through the blockade by the first cornice, where every possible route of escape is cock-blocked, and I die like a fucking rat in a fuse box. Now to develop a strategy. After about an hour of this, I develop a progression route that has like a 10% chance of working to clear out the first corner. I have to sprint by these motherfuckers and quickly squeeze myself into the prostate of this poor stranger, which causes the aforementioned gang to beat this guy to death in order to grant me safety underneath this specific tree. It's hard to remember which one it is between deaths, but this one is the one and only safe spot for the next, I don't know, eon. From here, I use my Bluetooth spears to very, very slowly open up the next portion before the cornice. By the way, a cornice is when a ledge builds up an overhang of snow. Oh, hold on though. Before I can show you the next part, I have to die real quick. Yay! Okay, that's all mostly cleared. There's a guy on the floor, but by now the voices have returned and I don't care anymore. The closest route to the next bonfire is right through there on the left. Unfortunately, it has so many enemies in just that tiny corridor that my game noticeably lags. This is usually a good thing, but holy fuck. I wish I could personally scout Miyazaki for adding that projectile attack. I can't fucking see it happening, so of course my Estus is basically 0 at this point. And yeah, there's some reload geometry right there, but it doesn't help shit. Over time, the enemies run out, and I have no other choice but to load the next round of enemies. In a panic, the cornice blinds me, and forces me to seek refuge in this outcropping, desperately, dodging the onslaught coming directly from my rectum. The environmental trees look me in the eye and say, fuck you, as they allow every single fucking enemy to dive bomb straight into my spleen. The Ashen One only has so many holes, and I inevitably burst at the seams. Fuck. Fuck it all. Why am I doing this? All hope was not lost. Actually it was, but I had another trick up my sleeve. You see, the first time I played this game, I actually explored the painted world like you're supposed to, and decided that my last hope would be this section over here. I don't bother killing anything because it would probably benefit me more, just to run past everything while it was loading in. I do die a few times, but the reward is juicy indeed. Before me is a playpen of various sniping, baiting, and falling spots for me to try eke some enjoyment out of. Alas, there are residents of the last area still vying to fuck some ass, so I spend the first 5 minutes running for my life, like I'm the last girl in the Discord. When the dust settles, I scope out my options, with the obvious choice being the cliffside ruins as the staging grounds for my uprising. The ruling class are not happy with this, and so they try increasing my rent, to no avail, because I'm a homeless crackhead and don't need to pay for anything. Slowly I edge further and further, and in game I make my way up to the incline to exterminate Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe, angling my sights toward the final section before the bonfire. There are about 100 billion enemies in there, but the difference this time is that I have an entire hill full of ruins and pitfalls to make an effective escape. Yeah, I can't really shoot stuff with my arrows running out, but I'm fine with that. Every now and then some spanner clips through the debris and tries turning me into a tube of toothpaste that's about to run out, and I nervously 1v1 him while his friends onlook in awe and admiration as I fillet their comrade to death. They of course are shot to death by the one-man firing squad. The last guy I let him live, to carry on my ideology that will live on through him. This last guy in the gully, honestly I was just desperate, and wanted this fuckhead area behind me. Suddenly, the cornice breaks, blinding me, sending me careening down the gorge, the pounding of cheeks becoming more distant, but not entirely gone, remaining a threat to my life and sanity as long as the screen shakes. I create some distance and slip down the boulders to the path below, begging for the slightest chance of making it to see some toes.
Yes, I'm free.
I need a ton of arrows after that, and because of what comes next, I see us go surf down to the Ariandel township, and immediately my balls get pulled through my ass. As punishment, I equip the very definition of greed and flog myself in a way that Daddy Ariandel would be envious. Fuck me for wanting fun. I try again, this time donning a truly ravishing looking hat, granting me the power to aggro and eliminate unforetold swaths of gooch goblins. Truly, this is so shit, man. The gameplay in question has achieved a status akin to being strapped to a wrecking ball and swung around at full tilt. I'm lucky enough only to get hit by the occasional projectile, but I look away in the hopes that the horrors well within my comprehension will go away. They don't. I can't aggro everything, and everything that is aggroed doesn't die. There are some stragglers easily dealt with, but the primary candidate for fuckwad of the century goes to this guy. Like before, he vibrates like fuck, and can only be shot every like 10 seconds. A bit like the red dragon encounter in Demon's Souls. This, right here, is the single most annoying 1v1 in this particular run. If I get close, he sinks into the ground and disappears, while still being able to kill me. Truly, an amazing 10 minutes of so-called gameplay. What he was occupying with his vast buttocks was the worst save spot in the game. Like, it's a true save spot, but I fucking hate it. For one, because I'm constantly scared of dying, and for another, the little river of shit can only fit 2 enemies at a time to kill each other. I was here for about 30 minutes. Another reason this safe spot sucks is that there is a CIA agent in my walls who likes to fist me while I walk down the hall. I have to walk down the hall to aggro more enemies, so I have no choice but to do so. I repeat this over and over for another 20 minutes until I start uncontrollably twitching, which is my clairvoyant ability telling me that something bad is about to happen. Oh, would you look at that? Huh. Honestly, I was glad. Instead of this shit, I went on to tend to the Gravetender, and I wish I could show you how that went, but the video file just disappeared. I still have no idea where it went. All it left behind was the negative space of the void it has left behind in my soul, like an empty chair, or a gap in a photo. All that file has left behind is a number neither 0 or 2, but something in between. I assure you that the branches section was far easier than it is in the base game. And as for the fight, there was only one Greatwood. It was a very boring fight, because I didn't suffer at all, really, for the duration of it. I wish there was a montage for this part where I'm like, I'm fucked. Or am I? But I just repeat this section verbatim. Getting slightly less lucky here and there, but with more knowledge at my disposal. The agent in the walls has by now suffocated to death, and I turn the corner, finally. Thankfully, what greets me is a perfect safe spot while I just shoot shit until it dies. Riveting. All the way to the very last arrow. Sadly, some NPC nobody gives a fuck about dies in the skirmish. Oh no. Anyway, I get the bonfire and everything is great now. The bonfire room looked cozy before, but now look, some idiot has kicked in the door and it's cold as fuck. Remember all those enemies from before? Well, now they are all here and ready to perforate my colon. Lucky for me, I can just sit in the corner in the fetal position, since I can't even pretend to have any control over this situation. All I can do is wait and wait and wait and wait, and when the soul counter stops going up, I have to go outside to bait some more. Everything in the direct vicinity is now dead. That was 32 enemies in the span of about 10 minutes. Besides, now that my front porch has been cleared of bodies, I can step outside and breathe the fresh mold spores in the cold air. This little tower on the right needs some laxative action. What I really want is the path on the left side. But I am all out of laxatives. Eventually, whoever is there will scoot up to this tree, where they then reach the perfect range to spam projectiles at me. This requires running across the bridge over and over again, while either not looking and risking a fall, or looking and praying I'm not being hit with another volley. Up the way a bit are 2 more and I do that all again, which takes another half hour of constant brain rattling and screen shake. And now that the gridlock is relieved, I can see the path that I need to take. Within that their church is Wilhelm, or Willem, I forget his name, and as is commonly agreed upon, that NPC is pure cheeks. The baby gate is locked, so I have to scale the rooftops in pursuit of the correct path. Luckily, it's right there, but the graveyard and church fully load in and they're absolutely clarted. This is looking good though, since maybe the churchgoers can equip their sapons and show William what for. It's this part of the script now. First, make your way into the Ariandel chapel, which should be extremely easy as seen here. Then take this bonfire, do whatever, suck these toes or something. Then equip a dagger of any kind and stand beside the bonfire. Sprint up the ladder and pivot right as you input the action key. This cancels the animation, and as far as the game is concerned, I'm still on that ladder. This fucks with the fabric of reality and causes some interesting side effects. Sprint into this exact point on this door, and jump as soon as you start sliding. You see, the fabric of reality decomposes when presented with vertical collision, when the game thinks you're still on the ladder anyway. This is the real Hogwarts Legacy gameplay everyone's been asking for. It's actually a secret alternative path you can take in this DLC, but Miyazaki made it slightly awkward to access. Lucky for you, I just showed you. This part is quite simple really. You just jump down onto the staircase, then make your way up to this exact lantern and sit underneath it. You should be safe from any one-shot attacks here. The goal is to forge a path through the unholy amount of idle sods that stand in the way of the lever that opens the Ariandel boss fight. It isn't exactly easy, especially with the hidden setup. And also because instead of jumping into the staircase and opening the door, I repeatedly glitch myself, intended game mechanic myself on the ladder, and it is quite annoying. Through piss, sweat, and piss, I part the Red Sea above the lever, though I don't have time to deliberate in this position because a ton of enemies wake up on my arrival, so I have to gun it straight to the lever and hope I got lucky. Usually I wasn't, but on the final attempt I opened the door that I should have opened like 30 minutes ago, but it didn't matter because I finally got to the lever, which also doesn't matter because this part I forgot to record. So here's a recreation of that.
I forgot to fucking record it.
You would think that this fight would be a very rare 3-phase Greatwood fight. No. Sister Friede's character model doesn't change like with the Abyss Watchers, meaning that there are only 2 phases as far as the game is concerned. To make it at least somewhat interesting, I summoned Gael for the phase 2 part, and absolutely not because I died twice in annoying ways and wanted to get this stupid area over with. I for real could have just let Gael solo this fight, but the guy doesn't go hollow for a reason. That reason being he doesn't have any thoughts to begin with. I was scared that there'd be 2 bosses in this room for this part, but Dr. Ariandel was excluded. Funny how Father Ariandel of Ariandel Chapel rules over the painted world of Ariandel. Next thing you're going to tell me is that the inventor of cornflakes is called John Kellogg. Gael has beef with the racketeering business that has been left unchecked by the Ariandel Mafia, but I don't have the heart to tell him that his lady's painting is a money laundering scheme. To spare him, I help him along like a good fellow undead to wrap up one of the worst parts of the run. These 2 bonfires look ridiculous until you realize that this one is just a portal to Dregheap, the precursive area to the Ringed City, the commonly agreed upon best area of this game. I have come to ruin that consensus. This hag spews unfettered lies at me, but she sells me 5 embers, of which I use none, so she's alright. What looms from below is as close as it gets to a blender in this post-industrial amalgamation of societies. It looks threatening, but is in reality extremely easy to deal with, by just standing up here and besetting the mob upon myself and cackling as they fall to their doom. The astute among you have already noticed that the souls awarded for killing the very first replacements in this DLC is 3,200. Yup, the fabled tier 5 enemy is what makes up the very first enemies of the Dregheap. What this could mean I absolve from my mind, because first I have to attend Sunday Mass, and like Sunday Mass, as soon as I try to free myself from the grasp of the old men, I suddenly feel my entire digestive tract get prolapsed and fed into my mouth like an Ouroboros. The first part is whatever. I wait like 2 minutes for these guys to slip on a giant banana peel, but I cannot do anything about this stupid fucking room until I drop myself right into the thick of it. Apparently dropping tilted means that enemies load and unload within centimeters between rooms. So for like 40 minutes I slowly develop a strategy where I jump off slightly to the right so that I'm not completely stuck in the grasp of the parish priest and approach a hidden member in the back who has replaced one of the deep, who has a scripted event upon arrival. This means that one of the Greatwoods wakes up and goes ham on his own kindred in an effort to squash me, meaning all I have to do is dodge his attacks alone while he low diffs the entire room from me. Like I said, this strategy took a long time to both formulate and to execute properly, but in the end I'm given enough space to 1v1 whichever Greatwood is beef with me, which take at least 2 extra minutes each due to being tier 5 scaled. To my dismay, there are not 1 or 3, but 2 AFKs in the doorway which have to die. Instead of making them kill each other in case they coordinate a projectile volley at me, I kill them separately, since they don't have a lot of HP due to their friends going nuts. When doing this area normally, I just sprint through at top speed because of the angels trying to burn my retinas and the deep trying to drag me down to hell. But now, I have to play this as safe as physically possible, while my retinas burn and I get dragged down to the underworld anyway. At the very least, the vast majority of Greatwoods are idle, but that doesn't stop them from totally blocking every important doorway. This church gets cleared at the cost of about 1 millimeter of my hairline per minute, and paves way for easily the single worst choke point in the entire run. Placed along the entire descending path are 20 brain rots, a horde of medical anomalies. Normally this wouldn't be that bad, but let's run through the reasons that this specific part makes me twitch. To get these guys to kill each other, I just have to get within melee range and then run away, because then they do attack animations forever until they die. This strategy is not possible, because there are countless tiny ledges that prevent my retreat. I tried the upper section where Patches is, but the same kind of obstruction is present. However, it is possible for a single dude to crawl up the incline and come face to face with me at this particular window, making it the only way to draw aggro for all 20 Branch Davidians. I couldn't give less of a fuck what happens to Patches here, so forget about him for now. While the little alcove is a nice boon bestowed unto me, I first have to make it safe to use, so I make use of my quickly diminishing stock of arrows to free up the Nutty Buddy Cave. These banisters make for a lovely little safe spot to do so, just barely within a radius of decent damage. It gets to the point that I need to switch to the crossbow for truly pitiful numbers, but I can't really complain. With that right side free of danger, I can start going nuts in the pigeonhole. Unfortunately, it is barely out of range for melee attacks, meaning I have to make do with what little artillery I have left. For reference, this attempt had now taken 50 minutes of constant tomfoolery. Because I hadn't been this far before, I didn't know how to address each puzzle with the best efficiency, so I was running unnecessarily low on supplies as time dragged on. One by one, the cultists tried to convince me to convert, but my resolve is steadfast. This is the source of the humans and drug trafficking on Lothric, this demented conglomeration of saps. But then, with the last one by the window gone, a terrible development makes itself seen. The last 3 are stuck behind a pillar at the bottom, who are not aggroed to me, and as discussed earlier, I have no way to retreat once I go down. Desperate, I look around for something, anything, that could allow me to make it past. There was no chance at all to run by them, even if I dodge, because their curvaceous forms are filling the environment. Grasping at twigs, I scour my inventory for anything at all that could get me out of this mess. Then, I see it. The alluring skull that I picked up in Undead Settlement. That's it. I can use the alluring skull to draw aggro and maybe run by. I line up the shot, praying to the goat for her blessings to let this work.
Fuck.
Astoundingly, they actually start spit roasting the alluring skull, permanently drawing aggro to me and eradicating the last threat before the drop to Irithyll Peak. Whoever that one commenter was who mentioned alluring skulls, I'm sorry. I should have listened. They would have been extremely useful. With 2 of them now dead, I can comfortably 1v1 the last guy in the overlooking window to finally free up the drop. But fuck, there are more. I am 70 minutes into this now, and I don't have the time to argue on how to approach this. However, fortune has always favored the bold.
Get it. Yes!
In celebration, I level my fortune stat, run invalid, and tackle the final leg of the drag heap. There are no angels, but man, I wish there were, instead of by far the densest area so far in terms of enemies. While developing strategies, I try this cliff, which doesn't work, the little shack, which doesn't work, this raised part, which doesn't work. But at long last, I find this baiting spot, which doesn't work. Look, call me a bitch, step on me, whatever, but I had absolutely zero interest in spending another like 20 minutes waiting for everything to die in the swamp and then brave the winding branches above it, which doubtless house all kinds of war crimes. Instead, I use this very useful shortcut, which is so obvious and not buggy that I believe it to be intentional. Behold now the absolute maximum screen shake possible in Dark Souls 3. This was definitely the most brain damaging true safe spot in the run. Holy fuck. I don't think I even had to do that though, because I could just run up alongside the ruins and take the bonfire with literally no repercussions. What comes next is the second best arena for fighting tree balls. Wide open space, lots of debris to get caught on, and tons of legroom to make myself scarce if anything goes wrong. To make this fight somewhat more notable, I kick off phase 2 immediately, which initiates the Demon Prince theme and lights up the arena. Neat. Yeah, it was super easy. Anyway, what is Here it is at last, the final area. Before not enjoying myself one more time, I strike up a little chit-chat with a fellow rent payer and take a look at this fucking section. I fucking call this fucking section because I fucking hate this fucking awful fucking shit. Fuck. Let's set up the insurmountable task before I lay down the epic solution. Most of these bitches are idle until I come up and say hi, which repulses them so bad that they leather me up the back of the head. The only feast beginning here has already begun, and it is solely upon my taint. If I get lucky, this one guy enters my safe spot, rendering it unsafe. I mean, at least there aren't any of those orange archers that normally ruin the view. Sure, I could just continue down the way, but look who invites himself. These two can do the same thing, but there is a blessed reload spot right on the stairs. With that done, I oil up and slip through some cheeks and into this most unnerving bonfire. Like, what the fuck is any of this? Progressing is relatively safe, but not easy, especially this little freak who waits for me to come underneath his balls so that he can teabag me. This part is... well, just look at it. What the fuck can I even say? I never even bothered counting how many units exist here, but dude, goddamn. Now, for the swag money solution narration, I push through the entrance and pop my blicky on the teabagger sexual style and piss off everyone in the vicinity with the Mr. Beast burger, begging for my life on both knees as I'm constantly bombarded with grimace shakes. Oops, had one too many, now I've got type 2 diabetes and fucking melt. Feeling sane now, let's do that again, but oh wait! That's only like 5% of the metric distance to the next bonfire. Hard luck, buddy. Not to worry, silly viewer, Miyazaki himself created a secret shortcut to address these grievances. Wake up this exact guy and walk as far away as you can along the turrets until he falls off. Voila! all the Greatwood AIs are frozen. How? Who knows? Equip a dagger, sprint at the ladder, pivot, and then sprint at this wall before jumping. This grants you access to the secret area that Miyazaki intentionally forgot to complete, as it is a reflection on how his games are incomplete without swamp areas and detailed feet. Heal and jump off over here at this angle to land on a wall, then heal again before making haste towards the shortcut door and opening it. There you have it. I upgrade my bow and... fuck, fine. I'll do this area normally, just for you. Yeah, you. You know who you are. Past the vibrating mass is the Midir Bridge, where Midir has a little oopsie and slips off, as well as the Ringed Knight. Right here is Midir's boss room, where his posse is totally invincible until he wakes up. And while I totally don't lose to some farmer like a certain western nation, I make sure to enjoy another absolute procedure. And just a few meters past this is the shared grave area, a grand old time indeed. And below that are some idiots who trip over themselves to hurl their vast bulks into the abyss, because I play hard to get. Indeed, the deep swamp is next. A single one of these loading areas contains about 50 enemies, and there are such an enormous amount of trees that I can't even tell where I need to go. Yeah, I am glad that I did that intended progression route instead of going insane here. Alright, for this next part the challenge is no bows allowed. Melee only, since I've been relying on them a bit too much as of late. I wish the Painting Guardian came in and healed the guy. I wonder how that would have worked out. At the very least, not having a bow made an already annoying fight way more tedious. Not being able to hit the elbow meant I had to club his knuckles. This tiny, cramped ass arena took roughly 10 hours off of my maximum lifespan alone. 10 minutes of attempts sure felt a lot longer. Now onto an actual boss, arguably the best one in the series. And if you ask me, yeah, it is. I wanted to use my bow for this part because fuck you, it's more fun. The first pygmy has been transformed into a grotesque abomination, confirming my suspicions that these unholy ingrates have been partaking in the piss blood of the Peeling Church. Slave-Knighted Greatwood surely can tell me where the source of this awful disease is located. It isn't just the pygmy in here with me. Some unknown addition has turned up. A threesome is fine, but 4 is a crowd, but that gives me an idea. I'll force them into their own threesome while I watch in the corner. As a perfect analogy of the entire run, I watch as they kill each other in their pursuit to part my cheeks, dodging haymakers and stomps, projectile attacks and charges. They don't really damage the main boss health bar, but having the other 2 eliminated is a great blessing indeed. I hide inside this church, where some unimportant NPC can spawn in while everything dies from afar, emerging from my room once my family members have left to have my portion of dinner. Alright, motherfucker. Let's bust it down. Absolute procedure style. Hand, leg, elbow, scrot, back, shoulder. The harem watches on in awe. I was almost sad that it ended so soon, but the game had another thing in store for me. This time it was the best thing it could have done. Existence is a fickle thing. There is hardship, failure, and despair, but there is beauty in that. Whatever hardship you are going through, someone has gone through the same, maybe even worse, and succeeded. Which means you can too. And if no one's been through it before, then you can be the first. The last thing Gaelwood told me was the source of the scourge on Lothric, the OG, the progenitor of Balls, the one and only. Returning to a tier 1 scaled area shows that I've become a monumental force, felling foes within seconds with my max level bow and club. The dilapidated bridge section, which had once upon a time been an absolute no-go, gets mowed through within minutes. Even Aldrich is a side thought. I approach the Saint of Scrotum, and in his honor, and to make the fight a little more cinematic, I turn off the HUD. One more time. We do the absolute procedure, for a quintessential finish. Because he's scaled so low, every pustule cracks under a single blow. Even after all the pain, I'm glad I scaled the enemies, to be honest. He's so weak and frail under my power that a single pustule is enough to end phase 2. Truly, this creature was pathetic from the beginning, in the face of the indomitable human spirit. Well then, off we go, to link the flame and burn this hellhole to ashes. The blaze should ensure that no Greatwood survives. Honestly, the last time I felt this somber about the game was when I first played it. It had been so long that a stupid video game made me feel so exhilarated, so defeated and rewarded, and royally fucked in the booty. I've gained an appreciation that I lost when it became too easy, especially for Tree Balls. He's a genuinely good boss in my eyes now, and nobody can change my contrarian opinion. I even watched the credits, and I realize now that I'm not totally relieved that it's over. I'm a little sad, if anything, that I don't have an insurmountable goal to achieve whenever I get home.
I'm scratching my nuts while this plays, by the way.
Whatever the case, I'll make up some other delusional goal that I'll document whenever I get around to it. It won't be DS3, it might be DS2, but I'd rather do something a little more, like, lighthearted next. I don't really want to do another 3-parter right away, and honestly, the Dark Souls 1 videos are a trilogy on their own. Prepare yourselves for man.